The empire had collapsed. Sacred relics were lost. Everyone believed Rome was finished, but one emperor dared the impossible. And history changed its course.
All right, let's dive into what might just be the single greatest comeback in all of history. Seriously. Okay, picture this. It's 610 CE, and the Roman Empire, well, it's about to die. It's on the absolute brink of just vanishing from the map. This is the story of the man who saved it, and the completely unforeseen price of his victory. So, you have to ask, how did things get this bad? Well, it all kicks off with a murder and a spectacularly terrible emperor.
So back in 602, the army just mutinies. They put this officer, a guy named Phocas, on the throne after brutally murdering the old Emperor Maurus and his entire family. Now over in Persia, King Khosrow II, who was, get this, a personal friend of the murdered emperor, he sees his chance. He uses the murder as the perfect excuse to launch a massive invasion, basically reigniting a war that had been quiet for years.
And it was just wild as how fast everything fell apart. I mean, under Maurice, you had peace with Persia, a stable frontier, things were okay. But Phocas, he was a paranoid tyrant, his rule was a complete disaster, so when Khosrow's armies came pouring in, the Roman defenses just melted away. The empire was literally tearing itself apart from the inside out.
Okay, so into all this chaos steps our hero, a guy named Heraclius. He sails in from Africa to save the day, gets rid of Phocas, and he's all set to be the savior everyone's been praying for. Except, it did not go well. At all.
Right before Heraclius executes him, Phocas looks at him and sneers this question. And it is just a chilling line. You can bet it haunted Heraclius for the next decade, because honestly, for a long time, the answer was a big fat no. So Heraclius tries to make peace, but the Persians aren't having it. So he decides on this incredibly bold move. He's going to lead the army into battle himself, something no emperor had done for over 200 years. He pulls together pretty much the entire Roman army for one single decisive blow. And it was a complete and utter catastrophe. At Antioch in 613, his army gets totally crushed. He barely escapes with his life. And that one defeat, it triggered a horrifying domino effect. First, Damascus falls, then Jerusalem, and this is a huge blow. The Persians sack the holy city, they burn the churches, and they carry away the true cross, the most sacred relic in all of Christendom. I mean, this wasn't just a military loss. For the people, it felt like God himself had abandoned them. Before long, Egypt, the empire's breadbasket, is gone. And the Persians, they're camped right across the water from Constantinople itself.
So here's Heraclius at his absolute lowest point. He's broken, he's defeated, and right then, he makes a decision that is going to change the course of history.
I mean, he failed. The hero had lost. It got so bad that Heraclius seriously considered abandoning Constantinople altogether. The plan was to move the capital back to his home base in Carthage, North Africa, and just rule what little was left of the empire from there. He actually started loading the ships. And then, as if things couldn't possibly get any worse, a letter arrives from King Khosrow. And this thing is basically the ultimate diss track of the ancient world. It's just mocking Heraclius, rubbing his nose in his failures, and boasting about how victory is a sure thing. Now, that letter was meant to break him, but instead, it lit a fire.
Just as Heraclius is about to flee, the Patriarch of Constantinople, the head of the church, physically stops him. He leads the emperor into the magnificent Hagia Sophia, and right there makes him swear a sacred oath that he will never, ever abandon his city. And then he makes this unbelievable offer. All the wealth of the church, the gold, the silver, all of it, would be melted down to fund one last desperate army. Suddenly, this wasn't just a war anymore. It was a holy crusade.
So, with new money in the bank and a whole new sense of purpose, Heraclius spends the next few years getting ready for the ultimate gamble. Look, years of playing defense had led to nothing but loss after loss. Heraclius finally realized the only way to win was to stop defending and go on the attack. He was going to risk absolutely everything on a crazy, high-stakes invasion of the Persian heartland itself. So for almost 9 years, while the Persians were busy consolidating their gains, Heraclius just trained. He pored over military manuals, he drilled his men non-stop, and he turned this small, desperate group into a lean, mean fighting machine. He told them, "You're not just soldiers, you are the last defenders of Rome. You're it." And then in 622, he makes his move. And what followed?
Well, it was a campaign of such strategic brilliance that it's still legendary to this day. And here's a perfect example of his cunning. It's brilliant. Heraclius gets his hands on a letter from a very frustrated Khosrow ordering the execution of his best general. Now, instead of just using that information, Heraclius gets creative. He forges the letter, and he secretly adds the names of 400 other high-ranking officers to the kill list. So when he makes sure the general gets this new, improved letter, the guy is so enraged at what he thinks is a massive betrayal that he and his entire army just pack up and go home. Just like that, the biggest Persian army is out of the war without a single fight. Fast forward to the final, decisive battle near the ruins of Nineveh in 627. The Persian commander, full of bravado, challenges Heraclius to single combat, and the emperor accepts. Not only does he defeat their general with a single blow, but he then proceeds to cut down 2 more Persian champions who step up to challenge him. He was leading from the absolute front, and his men, seeing this, they were so inspired they just shattered the Persian army.
So, the war was over. The comeback was complete. But the story? It doesn't end there. Oh no. In fact, this is where things get truly, deeply ironic.
Heraclius had won. I mean, totally and completely. Khosrow gets overthrown and executed by his own son, who immediately begs for peace. Every piece of captured land, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, it's all returned. And most importantly, the true cross is brought back in triumph to Jerusalem. The Roman Empire was whole again. It was the perfect victory.
And Heraclius? He was hailed as a hero, a new Scipio, a modern-day Caesar. But that perfect victory, it came with a hidden price tag. A price that absolutely no one saw coming. You see, for centuries, the Romans and the Persians were the 2 superpowers of the ancient world. They were constantly fighting, yeah, but they held each other in this kind of bloody but stable balance. Well, after 26 years of the most destructive war either side had ever fought, both of them were left completely shattered. The Persian Empire collapses into civil war. And the Roman Empire, yeah, it was victorious, but it was also utterly drained of soldiers and money.
And right into that massive power vacuum, a new force emerges from the Arabian desert, a people united by the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Think about it. In saving the Roman Empire by completely destroying its ancient rival, Heraclius had accidentally, unintentionally, created the perfect conditions for the rise of Islam. The very provinces he fought so desperately to win back, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, they would all be lost again, only this time, for good, to the Arab conquests, all within his own lifetime. The greatest comeback in history, in a tragic twist, had just paved the way for the end of the ancient world.